Hello, welcome to Clay to Canopy, the show where I attempt to make just about everything from the ground up. And welcome to the Don't Wake the Dragon Interior Makes series. Now that I have my puzzles made, I need something to put those puzzles in. And today I am going to be doing a sewing project where I'm making some apple-inspired pouches to store my puzzles. So come on, let's do this. Believe it or not, I had no idea what would be going into these little sacks. The sacks actually came long before the puzzles did. We've had quite the winter rainy season, and I was looking for an inside project. Something about the rain makes you want to be all cozy inside and doing some sewing. It's like the perfect kind of rainy day weather project for me. With me, just a cup of tea, maybe some biscotti, my sewing machine, and just making stuff. I was looking for something to do with my smaller scraps of fabric from the build. I had this idea of what would you put in the middle of a coffee table, maybe like a bowl of waxed fruit. No idea why the heck people put random ornamental balls on a coffee table that have like no purpose. So I'm like, it'd be really cool to go back to like, having this bowl of fruit idea, but have it have a function. I was envisioning apples pouches that could go into some sort of fruit bowl, I guess for like the resting space of the dragon, like meaning I'm not entertaining, there's not a food spread put out. This sits at the middle of the runner at all times, the kind of thing you have out, I guess in neutral mode, right? When dragon is in neutral mode. All of that to say, I liked the idea of having a piece of fruit that was a pouch, and I looked up some free patterns. I altered the pattern, incorporating that zipper so that I can then go ahead and use it for something. Somewhere along the way, I ended up coming up with the idea that it would be great to have wooden puzzles that go inside of them. So here we are. Here are the 4 that I have made so far. I still have 2 more to make, and it took some trial and error. The exterior is my pattern fabrics, and you don't need much of it. I'm only using a very small teardrop shape, but then the interior, a piece of black felt just to make it a little bit more stiffer. These I have pre-stuffed with cotton just to help hold the shape before puzzle pieces go in. I used my Cricut, scanned this pattern into the computer, did my magic with Photoshop and Illustrator, made an SVG file, scanned it into the Cricut, and had them cut both felt and pattern piece. I then also applied fusible web so that it would make it easier in the cutting. I'm going to go ahead and do that stage, but this one I'm going to do by hand. You can very easily find this pattern. If you really want this one that I'm using, just shoot me a message on either Facebook or on Instagram, and I will email you over a pattern. Otherwise, you could probably just Google it, because that's what I did. I just Googled free apple sewing pattern, and this came up, 3D apple sewing pattern. I'm just going to go ahead and use that as my tracer. You can see, just go ahead and tracing that on with a piece of chalk, and I'm just gonna hand cut these out. You're gonna need 6 of these for 1 apple. And if you are using a Cricut, you can easily change the scale just by altering them in your machine. If you're doing it old school style, you'll have to alter it before you print. I'm gonna cut my felt first, and then I'm gonna go digging in my scraps. This is a great way to use up scraps. You're never gonna see the felt on the inside of your pattern. It goes on the inside unless you're unzipping the thing. It's not something that's prominent. Random scraps of felt that maybe you have, you could do that. You could use different colors for it. I've picked through my stash, and I still have quite a bit of this fabric left that already has light bond applied to it. But you can purchase fusible webbing, double-sided fusible web really cheaply. I think I only paid like maybe $1 and change a yard of it. And if you're doing this small amount, you won't need that much of it. And I'm going to heat set my pieces together so that they're ready to go. I need is the leaf for the top of the apple, and this one I didn't even use a pattern for. I just kind of eyeballed a teardrop shaped, but instead of using plain felt, I had a little bit of this sparkly felt left over from another project, and then I also stitched a rectangular shaped piece for the stem part. So I'm just gonna do the same again, eyeball a teardrop shape. Since I will be using two, I'll just fold this over itself. Should do me there. Then I also have 5-inch zippers. I'm gonna start matching up my pattern pieces, but I want to make sure that I don't end up with two darks next to each other. And I know it looks quite random, but the one thing I wanted to make sure is that I didn't want to end up with two really dark pieces next to each other when I did the stitching. These grays, a little bit of my darker ones, right? And then I'm going to make sure that the darker one goes to the bottom, and I lay the lighter color at the top, and I will pin just at this edge because I'm only going to be stitching one set of one edge of each so far. See what I mean? That will get pinned, and then that will get pinned. I want to make sure that I'm pinning everything on the same side. I have the longer part of the taper here, and then the shorter bit. This is actually the top because the apple's shape tapers downward. You can mark that out if you need to. This is pretty stiff, so I don't need to put in too many pins. It's just an indicator to make sure that when I pick these up, that I stitch the right side of the piece. One set is going to be the one that has the zipper. I have two sets all ready to go. And then the third set, I'm going to get the zipper on first because this will be a lot easier to do when it's installed on one piece. So I have my zipper. This is going to be fitting on that side, and I'm just kind of eyeballing a little bit ways down. And I have installed the zipper in two different places, one at the top and one at the bottom. I can't really decide which one I like the best. I don't know if it really matters. So I'll do one of each since I'm making two. So I'm just going to reverse the zipper and get it pinned on. Zippers can be a little bit tricky on the sewing machine. However, I feel that it's necessary to really do this on the machine. I wouldn't recommend doing it by hand. I mean, you certainly could, but I'm gonna go over it multiple times to make sure it's good and on there. I'm just gonna do one side for now. All right, my stacks are ready to go through the sewing machine for the first round. I'm going to go ahead and run the zipper first, and I'm just using a straight stitch for the first go round. Go back and run a zipper stitch just to give myself a nice good lock. It's basically a zigzag stitch. This just helps reinforce that zipper to make sure it's good and strong. Alright, set that aside for a second, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch the same way I did with the zipper. One single stitch first, remove my pins, and then go back with the zipper stitch. I'm going to trim up my random threads that I got going on. I need to get the zipper attached to the opposite side, and I want to make sure that I get it in the right spot. So I'm just going to sort of eyeball the back line there, position it so that I have that seam matched up, and then I'm going to basically be tipping it up against this and popping my pins on along the edge. I'm going to address this zipper first, get that tacked on there, and then I'm going to be going back and stitching up the edge parts just to close in my ends. I'm using my reverse stitch to go in and secure and lock my stitch on here so that I don't lose it. That way I can pull it out in order to back this out. I can pop out these and back up my zipper so I can finish out my stitch, and then back across the whole thing again with that zigzag stitch. I I never used to reinforce my stitches until I had a studio downtown Los Angeles, and it was a big space where a bunch of different artists had other studio spaces, and I was friends with a couple of German girls who were starting a clothing line. They were sewers, and I made this sculpture piece, and they looked at my stitches and they were like, "Great piece, but your stitches need work." And they told me that in order to reinforce, especially with home machines, that if you wanted a good solid stitching, that you needed to reinforce your stitches with a second line of stitching just behind your first stitch. If I'm just doing a straight stitch and I only wanted to have a straight stitch, I'll go in and put a double seam line. And my zipper is good. I can go ahead and start matching up all of my pieces. So I'm only going to be stitching one set at a time. I'm going to go ahead and match up my next grouping. Did a terrible job of trimming here. Just refilled my tea. I love that tea. Perfect. I'm drinking something called Ticino, which is carob and chicory. Tastes like coffee. As I'm stitching this one, I want to make sure that I pull back the other piece and just stick a pin, keeping those two together. This way I don't accidentally stitch my pieces together. Whoa, I ran out of bobbin. For my leaf, I'm going to use this straight stitch to go around the entire leaf. And then I'm going to come up the middle and do a bit of veining. Just to give it a little bit of character, and I'll just draw it on here for chalk so y'all can see. What is going on, my friend? Got some bobbin problems. The bobbin. There we go. Now that I have my leaf, I'm going to go ahead and position it to remember which side is the top. So the tiny tapered part is the bottom, and that means that my leaf is going to be up here. I'm putting it in upside down because it's going to be inside the pouch. Get it in. Before I go crazy pinning up all the other things, I think I'm just going to throw in a couple stitches just to get this locked into place. Before I go stitching up the whole thing and closing the hole out, I'm going to open up my zipper so I can easily invert the pouch. Sometimes when I have a big bulk like this, if I can't get the full amount under the foot, sometimes I'll just start it here, wherever I can fit it, hit the reverse, and it'll catch that spot for me. Trim up my bits. And I can flip it inside out, or I should say right side out. And this is where having that cotton really helped sort of hold that form, get it all pushed out. Not a bad idea to use the cotton to fix the shape, and then you can go ahead and pull the cotton back out of it. These have been sitting for quite some time with the cotton in them holding their shape. Cotton has done its job for this one. I don't think you need to let it sit long. I mean, these ones that I have made have been quite a few months that I made them ago. Just having it sit for a little bit to hold its shape will be enough to get you there. Alright, so I'm going to finish up this last one. I still have to do a couple more seam line stitches, and then all that is left is to load the puzzles into these things. My apples are ready to go, and I have sort of mapped out which apple is going to go along with which puzzle. Basically what happened was when I first started this, I kind of was messing around with the pattern, and so I have a couple of different sizes because I was still trying to work it out till I got one that I was happy with. So not all apples here are equal. Thankfully, not all puzzles are equal too. So I'm going to go ahead and start loading up my apples. I've not tested this, so I'm hoping that they all fit because there's no going back at cutting up more pieces. Goodness, goodness. Uh-oh. Get on in there, get on in there. Alright, that one seems okay. So one. Alright y'all, I have been able to fit all of them into their pouches. Before I can get these all loaded into the dragon, I need to get that fruit bowl, the footed fruit bowl made. So that is going to be the next video, but I'm going to call this one here. I hope you enjoyed watching me make these apple pouches. Yeah, please like, share, and subscribe if you have not done so already. Stick around to watch these projects all unfold, And remember, don't wake the dragon.